Hey folks, so today we're going to be planting some native bulbs under this beautiful wildflower sod. Now if you haven't caught that episode, we actually laid out this wildflower sod about 2 weeks ago and it's looking pretty good. Although yesterday we had our first frost. So we're in mid-October right now. You can see because a lot of these plants are perennial, they didn't have a problem with that. Although some of the coreopsis, the flowers are all melted, unfortunately. So the day before our frost, they were bright and cheery. I even came out yesterday after that first frost and I saw a number of tired bumblebees. They looked really shell-shocked and I ended up picking up as many as I could and putting them on some of the last remaining flowers. But if you recall, this wildflower sod 2 weeks ago, and what we did is we had solarized the area. So similar to this, we had this large vinyl. It's an old billboard actually. We had that here, we solarized that for precisely 1 year. We lifted it up, assessed the situation. All the grass had been killed underneath. After that, we basically raked it out. The area underneath it was quite compact and had a lot of number 2 stone underneath. So what we did is we brought in some of our espoma substrate. We made maybe about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch of substrate underneath that these roots of this wildflower sod could root into. And then my friend Daryl and I, we rolled out these carpet tiles of wildflower sod, and I think it's rooted in pretty nicely. Now, what our idea was to throw some bulbs underneath the wildflower sod. Unfortunately, those bulbs didn't come in on time, and I realized that some of the bulbs that I got were really big honking bulbs. Like the Camassia lectlinii cerulean bulbs were basically half the size of my fist. And it would have provided a really bumpy surface, and we did the best we could with really evening out that land and patting that wildflower sod in so those roots could root into the soil below. And then I watered it in for about 2 weeks. I've stopped watering it in as of 2 days ago because we had that freezing temperature, we were expecting it, and so we took all the hoses and the hose bibs out so they wouldn't freeze. And in the next couple days we will be getting rain, so I think that this is pretty much rooted in. I don't even see where the edge of the carpet tiles are. So we got a number of native and native adjacent bulbs here. And I use the term native adjacent. I've never heard anybody else use it, but let me explain what I mean by that. Typically, I mean a plant that is not native right here to this area, but it may be native to another part of the state, maybe native to an adjacent state or in the same ecoregion. I like to use it because I like to plant native plants, as you've probably seen from all my videos, but I'm not a strictly native plants person, so I do definitely make the effort in most of my gardens to do that. This one happens to be a native adjacent plant, and this is our Camassia psiloides, and it's otherwise known as wild hyacinth. And I just got these in yesterday. They're all bare root packed in peat. Got these from Prairie Moon. To my knowledge, they're the only ones who sell Camassia psiloides. They don't harvest them from the wild. They actually grow them, which is probably the proper way to do it, as opposed to taking anything from the wild. So we're gonna see how small these are compared to the other Camassia that I had the other day. Look at, these are quite tiny compared to that Camassia lectlinii. You can see that there's the growing tip right here. And these are true bulbs. I will have some that are corms, maybe some that are rhizomes in here. I'd have to double check, but I think I just have bulbs and corms. And that's just, a technical aspect of anatomical nature, talking about the underground parts of a plant. A bulb includes the stem and the leaves and the roots, whereas a corm is primarily just the stem. So you could see that all of that, the stem the leaves coming out of there, also has the roots here. And so basically what we're going to be doing is tucking these in underneath the wildflower sod as neatly as possible. I like the fact that it actually had a freeze, and that means like things may have came up. If you plant them in too early before a freeze, they can frost heave if you don't plant them too deeply. The other ones that I'll be planting are some of my favorite native genera around, and that is blazing star. So I have this one right here, Liatris pycnostachys, and I would say these are the real heroes in the meadow and in some of my gardens. I actually still have some of our northern blazing stars still in bloom, and Liatris pycnostachys, our prairie blazing star, this is also, I would say, a native adjacent. It's native in the central part of the United States, but also up through New Jersey, as I found out, because we did a tour at one of the nurseries, actually the nursery that grows this sod out, and they had actually found some native populations of the Liatris. Now these could be planted. This is an example of a corm. Wow, it's a big corm. It's also a really big plant. They get quite tall and stately. So the corm is like the stem, and you could see that they had just gone dormant and they cut it off. Now, a lot of folks will plant Liatris during the springtime. That's kind of the most common. You see a lot of the Liatris spicata, which is the most common species of Liatris that you could plant in the spring. Because prairie moon also does dormant in October, I like to do them in October because I could get some of the more interesting varieties. And then this blooms really early in the season, I found, so it's great for earlier butterflies like swallowtails and things like that. But if you want a later blooming Liatris, then you could go with our, and this is actually one of our either threatened or endangered species. I should look that up because I keep on going back and forth. I don't know which one it is, but it is one of the species in New York that is rarer, and this is our northern blazing star, or Liatris scariosa variation newlandii. You can see this is more of the corms that I expected to get because they are much smaller. And this one blooms really late in the season. It corresponds with the migration of the monarchs. As I shared, even after the freeze, there's some Liatris still blooming. I'll show it to you right here. Actually, I see it in the meadow as well. This is our Scariosa variation newlandii, and you can see there are still some blooms available for some of those late season. The pycnostachys, which kind of has a stature more like this, although I think this is a spicata, those have already gone to seed, as you can see, and those provide really good food for goldfinches. I always see the goldfinches sitting on those and eating those, particularly in the winter. They'll even favor that over some of the bird feeders, which I think is interesting. All right, next on the list is also a plant that is considered a bulb, and I believe this is also threatened in New York State, but don't quote me on that. And this is a true bulb, and you could find this ornamentally around. It's not unusual. This is our nodding onion, or Allium cernuum. It has this really nice rosy lavender color to the flowers, and it doesn't grow that tall. I would say, maybe 12 to 15 inches, and I think it's really gorgeous. I have this in our garden. It smells like onions. It's edible. So, and I would say the Camassia as well are edible, although I haven't had any that are really delicious. You're supposed to cook them like really low and slow or boil the heck out of them. I've had them pickled because it is kind of, I wouldn't say it's a delicacy, it's more like a famine food in Italy. And I didn't quite like them, but they are starchy. And I would say maybe if you honey roasted them low and slow, they could be maybe good. But nice to know that you can eat them. And I should say that these grow quite short compared to some of the Pacific Northwest Camassia. Wild hyacinth, they're definitely not as ornamental as some of the other hyacinths. I'd say they're a little bit more delicate. But that's Camassia, that's Allium. And then the other one related to Allium that I'll show you that we're going to be planting today is our wild garlic. Allium canadense. Most people don't even know that we have a native wild garlic. And obviously it's not as big as like some of the elephant garlic. And this is not our native ramps either, which grow a bit more in forested settings. These are very tiny. And again, you good to see how these could have done really well if we toss these under the sod and then put the sod over them. Aren't they so cute? Look at that. And they get thin, wispy, little garlic chivy type leaves with a white flower at top. And most of these will bloom in the spring through summer months, except for the liatris. And that's when this will start to take off. Like most of the things are still low in May, June, and July. And most of the grasses that you see here are not going to start taking off until the warmer season because they're warm season grasses like the little blue stem. And that's when you'll start to see the height come with the liatris and some of the other plants as well. So I'll show you how I'm going to dibble these in. I guess we'll start with the garlic. I actually dibbled in some plants yesterday. One of the other plants that I did was a native bulb that you would see in California coast that has a really beautiful purple flower. Diclostema, I think its name. I'll have to show you that one up on the screen. So you can see, look at the little roots. So I'm just going to get this down in here. And typically what you want to do with a bulb is you want to get it roughly 2 to 3 times down the length. These are really tiny bulbs, so I could get those pretty close to the surface. But if you have an animal that might dig them up, then you want to dig them a little bit deeper. But the great thing is about these, the garlic and the allium in particular, is animals don't want to eat these. It's actually quite foul, so I don't have to plant those as deep. The only other thing is if the ground is going to freeze, you may want to plant them a little bit deeper so that they don't frost heave. That's the other challenge when planting in the fall. I am down to some of my last ones. These are the Camassia. You can see that up close. And these are the nodding onions. So with some green bits in there as well. I could smell the onion on this. The other bulb that I had that I forgot to share is the prairie lilies. Somewhere. I planted them already, but there's only 4 of them. But I wanted to try those as well. Even though we have the lily leaf-eating beetle, we still have our lilies around here. They just kind of do a number on them. But these are the last number that I'm going to be planting on the other side of the wildflower sod meadow. All right, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.